Ji-won Kim stood in the grand chamber of Zenith Prime, trying not to show her nervousness. The orbital station floated above a purple gas giant, and through the massive windows she could see dozens of alien ships coming and going. This was humanity's big moment. After 50 years of radio signals and careful preparation, Earth was finally meeting the galactic community. The chamber itself was enormous, built for species of all sizes. Some council members were as small as dogs, others towered like elephants. Ji-won counted 12 different species sitting in their designated sections. Each one looked at her with expressions she couldn't quite read. Was that curiosity, contempt? She wished she knew. Beside her stood Hyun Park, Earth's military advisor. He wore his dress uniform, metals gleaming under the strange blue lighting. His face remained calm, but Ji-won noticed his jaw tightening. He saw something she didn't. Ambassador Kim of Earth, a deep voice boomed across the chamber. The speaker was Thane Voris, a towering being covered in gray scales with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like embers. He was the council leader. You come seeking membership in our ancient organization. We have maintained peace for 10,000 years. Yes, honored counselor, Ji-won replied, her voice steady. Humanity wishes to join this peace. We bring our knowledge, our culture, and our friendship. A clicking sound erupted from the left side of the chamber. Ji-won turned to see an insectoid creature, its body covered in black chitin that reflected the light like oil. This was a Vrellan, she remembered from her briefings. The species controlled 12 star systems and had a reputation for aggressive expansion. Friendship? The Vrellan clicked, its voice translated by the chamber's systems. Your species has been watching from your tiny blue world for barely a century. You know nothing of galactic politics. You are children playing with fire. Hyun shifted slightly. Ji-won placed a gentle hand on his arm, a silent message to stay calm. We may be young to the stars, Ji-won said carefully, but humanity has much to offer. Our art, our science, our determination to learn. Your determination, Thane Voris said, and something in his tone made Ji-won's stomach drop. Yes, we have observed your determination, your wars, your weapons, your history of violence. The chamber fell silent. Ji-won felt the weight of every alien eye upon her. Every species has a violent past, she argued. We've grown beyond that. We've united our world. We've achieved peace among ourselves. How convenient, another voice said. This one came from a being that looked like floating crystals arranged in a vaguely humanoid shape. You achieved peace just in time to meet us. How very fortunate. Laughter rippled through some sections of the chamber. Not friendly laughter. The kind that made Ji-won feel like the joke was on her. Thane Voris raised one of his 4 hands. The chamber quieted immediately. The Galactic Council has reviewed humanity's application. He announced, We have reached a decision. You will be granted probationary membership with limited rights and privileges. Ji-won felt a spark of hope. Probationary wasn't ideal, but it was a start. However, Thane continued, and that hope died. There are conditions. Your world possesses resources that are inefficiently distributed. Water covers 70% of your surface. Rare minerals sit unused in your crust. The Council has determined that these resources would be better managed under galactic stewardship. What does that mean exactly? Hyun asked, his voice hard. It means, the Vrellan clicked with what might have been pleasure, that Earth will surrender 70% of its water rights and 80% of its mineral extraction rights to the Council. This is standard procedure for primitive species entering the galactic community. Standard? Ji-won's voice rose despite her training. You're demanding we give up our resources? Our water? Our people need that to survive. You will retain sufficient resources for your population, Thane said dismissively. The rest will be extracted and redistributed where they can be properly utilized. You have 30 days to comply. And if we refuse? Hyun asked quietly. The chamber fell deathly silent. Thane Voris leaned forward, his glowing eyes fixed on the 2 humans. Then you will be classified as a hostile species. Your world will be quarantined. Your ships will be destroyed on sight. Your people will remain trapped on that little blue marble until you see reason, or until you destroy yourselves. Either outcome is acceptable to us. Ji-won tried to speak, tried to argue, tried to negotiate, but every word was cut off, dismissed, or laughed at. The Council had made its decision. They saw humanity as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. After an hour of humiliation, security escorted them out. On the shuttle back to their ship, Ji-won sat in stunned silence. Hyun worked on his datapad, his fingers flying over the keys. They planned this, he said finally. They knew what they'd demand before we even arrived. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a robbery. What do we do? Ji-won asked, her voice hollow. We go home. We tell them what happened. And then, Hyun looked out the window at the stars. Then we prepare. Captain So-min Lee was waiting for them aboard the ESS Indomitable, humanity's first faster-than-light capable warship. She was young for a captain, only 35, but she'd earned her position through skill and courage. Her crew loved her. Her superiors trusted her. How did it go? She asked, though the expressions on their faces told her everything. Plot a course for Earth, Hyun ordered. Maximum speed. And send a coded message ahead. Protocol Savage Night. So-min's eyes widened. Protocol Savage Night was the worst-case scenario. The assumption that first contact would be hostile. The contingency that military planners had prepared for but hoped they'd never need. Are you sure? She asked. The Council is sending a fleet, Ji-won said quietly. 200 warships. They call it a compliance fleet. They'll arrive at Earth in 30 days to enforce their demands. So-min turned to her navigator. Set course for Earth. Push the engines to redline if you have to. We need to get there first. As the Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light speed, Ji-won stood at the observation window. She thought about Earth, about her family, about the 7 billion people who had no idea what was coming. 30 days. 30 days to prepare for war against an empire that spanned the galaxy. 30 days to find a way to survive against impossible odds. The Galactic Council thought they knew humanity. They thought humans were just another primitive species to be exploited and controlled. They had studied Earth's history and seen only violence and chaos. They had no idea what humanity could become when pushed to the edge. They didn't understand what desperation could forge. They couldn't imagine what Earth would do to protect its own. The Council had made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity a deadline, a clear enemy, and no choice but to fight. In 30 days, they would learn what humans really were, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Vrellan compliance fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 200 warships, each one larger than Earth's biggest aircraft carrier. Their shields glowed with contained energy, their weapons charged with power that could level mountains. Fleet Commander Zethik stood on the bridge of the flagship, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. This would be an easy assignment. The humans would see this force and surrender immediately. They always did. Every primitive species understood the futility of resistance when faced with such overwhelming power. Commander, his sensor officer reported, we're detecting human vessels approaching our position. Zethik's compound eyes focused on the display. 30 small ships were moving toward them. 30 ships against 200. He clicked in amusement. How adorable. They wish to escort us to their homeworld. Open a communication channel. Actually, Commander, the officer said nervously, their weapons are armed. They're taking attack formation. Zethik stopped clicking. Attack formation? Are they insane? Do they not understand basic mathematics? Send them a warning. Tell them to stand down or be destroyed. The human response came quickly. It was a woman's voice, calm and clear. This is Captain So-min Lee of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our territory without permission. Your hostile intent is clear. Turn back now or we will engage. Zethik couldn't believe what he was hearing. Engage, you have 30 ships. We have 200. Our shields alone could withstand anything you possess. This is your final warning. Surrender your world's resources or be eliminated. There was a pause. Then So-min Lee spoke again, and something in her tone made Zethik uneasy. You don't understand us at all, do you? You think we'll just give up because the odds are bad? You think we'll surrender because you have bigger guns? That's your first mistake. What is she talking about? Zethik demanded of his crew. All ships, battle stations, prepare to destroy these insects. The human ships suddenly accelerated, moving faster than Vrellan sensors had predicted. They split into groups, diving and weaving in patterns that seemed random but clearly weren't. The Vrellan fleet opened fire, massive energy beams lancing through space. But the human ships were small and quick. Most of the shots missed. The few that connected were absorbed by shields that, while weaker than Vrellan shields, were apparently strong enough to take a hit or two. They're fast, Zethik admitted, but speed won't save them. Focus fire. Overwhelming force. Standard doctrine. That's when the humans stopped playing defensive. Small objects erupted from the human ships, thousands of them spreading out in clouds. At first, Zethik thought they were missiles. Then he realized they were unmanned drones, and each one was heading straight for his fleet at incredible speed. "Point defense systems. Eliminate those drones," he ordered. The Vrellan ships began shooting down the drones, but there were so many, and they didn't try to dodge. They just kept coming, wave after wave, throwing themselves at the Vrellan fleet. The first drone got through. It slammed into a Vrellan destroyer's shield and exploded. The shield held, but the energy drain was significant. Then 10 more drones hit the same spot. Then 50. The shield collapsed and the next drone struck the hull itself. The destroyer disappeared in a flash of nuclear fire. Zethik stared in horror. What kind of species uses nuclear weapons in space combat? The radiation, the debris field, they're making this region uninhabitable. They don't seem to care, Commander, his tactical officer replied. More human ships were closing now, and they were doing something Zethik had never seen in his 40 years of military service. They were ramming his ships. One human vessel accelerated to full speed. Its shields focused forward like a spear, and punched through a Vrellan cruiser's weakened defenses. Both ships exploded, but the cruiser was 10 times larger. "They're using suicide tactics." Zethik's voice rose in pitch. "They're actually killing themselves to destroy us." In the ESS Indomitable, Salman Lee watched the battle unfold. She'd lost 6 ships already, 6 crews who had volunteered knowing they wouldn't come home. Her heart ached for each one, but she couldn't stop now. "Deploy the package," she ordered. Deep in the Indomitable's cargo bay, Dr. Minho Choi's latest creation was launched. Millions of microscopic machines, each one barely visible, spread out in an invisible cloud. The Vrellan ships flew right through them without noticing. The nanomachines were programmed with a simple task: find metal, replicate, break down the metal to replicate more. They were self-limiting, designed to die after a specific time period, but until then they would eat anything metallic they touched. Within minutes, Vrellan hull plates began to show strange pitting. Within an hour, the damage would be catastrophic. The Vrellan would have to retreat just to survive. But Soman didn't wait for that. She ordered her next attack wave forward. More drones, more missiles, more desperate ramming attacks. The space around Earth's solar system became a hell of fire and radiation. Lieutenant Daiho Song piloted his small fighter through the chaos. He was young, only 23, but he'd trained his whole life for this. His targeting computer locked onto a Vrellan dreadnought, the largest ship in their fleet. "This is for Earth," he whispered. He dove his fighter through a gap in the dreadnought's shields, a tiny opening that existed for only microseconds. His ship's computer said he had a 2% chance of making it. He made it. Once inside the shield bubble, he armed his payload. An antimatter warhead, unstable and dangerous. The kind of weapon that galactic law banned as too inhumane. The kind of weapon that humans built anyway because laws meant nothing when your species was fighting for survival. Daiho ejected at the last second, his escape pod flying away at maximum thrust. Behind him, his fighter crashed into the dreadnought's main reactor. The explosion was visible from Earth. Zethik watched his flagship die. He watched half his fleet retreat, their hulls being eaten by something invisible. He watched the remaining ships try to maintain formation while human fighters swarmed them like angry insects. "All ships, retreat," he finally ordered. "Full speed back to Council space. We need reinforcements. He couldn't finish the sentence. His ship's hull was already compromising from the nanomachine infection. They had to get to a shipyard before the entire vessel fell apart. The Vrellan compliance fleet limped away, having lost over 60% of its ships. The humans had lost 20 ships. By any military calculation, the humans had suffered more proportional losses, but the humans had won. Soman stood on her bridge, looking at the casualty reports. 2,000 dead. 2,000 people who had families, dreams, futures, gone in a few hours of brutal fighting. "Captain," her communications officer said softly, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Admiral Yu Nahan wants to speak with you." The Admiral's face appeared on screen. She was older, gray-haired, with eyes that had seen too many wars, but she was smiling just a little. "You did well, Captain Lee. You proved what I always knew, that humanity could survive anything if we were willing to pay the price." "The price was high, Admiral," Soman said. "It will get higher," Yuna replied. "The Council won't accept this defeat. They'll send a bigger fleet, and we'll have to fight harder, dirtier, more savage than before. Are you ready for that? Selman thought about her lost crew members. She thought about Earth below, where billions slept peacefully, not knowing how close they'd come to slavery. Yes, Admiral. We're ready. Good, because this was just the beginning. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 12 species argued loudly, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. At the center of it all stood Thane Voris, his forearms raised for silence. The humans destroyed our compliance fleet. The Vrellan representative shrieked. They used weapons banned by galactic law. They used suicide attacks. They are monsters who must be exterminated. Perhaps we should have considered that before we threatened to steal their world's resources, a soft voice said. All eyes turned to Tessa Rin, ambassador of the Luminar species. The Luminar were beings of light and energy, peaceful by nature, rarely speaking against the council majority. Tessa's glow dimmed slightly as she faced the hostile stares. Explain yourself, Luminar, Thane demanded. We went to the humans with demands, not dialogue, Tessa said calmly. We treated them as inferiors to be exploited. They defended themselves. How is this surprising? They killed thousands. The Vrellan shouted. After we sent 200 warships to enforce an ultimatum, Tessa countered. What did we expect them to do? Surrender and become our slaves? Perhaps we should examine our own actions before condemning theirs. The chamber erupted again. Some species agreed with Tessa, mostly the smaller, less powerful ones. Others, the strong military species like the Vrellan and Karveth, demanded immediate retaliation. Thane Voris made his decision. The council will vote on a full military response. I propose we assemble an extermination fleet of 2,000 warships. We will eliminate the human threat permanently. This is genocide. Tessa's light flared bright with anger. You're talking about killing billions of sentient beings. They have proven themselves too dangerous to exist, Thane replied coldly. All in favor? 9 hands, claws, and appendages rose in agreement. 3 voted against, including Tessa. The motion passed. Far away on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Jiwan Kim sat in a hidden bunker that served as Earth's temporary embassy. She watched the council vote on a hacked feed, her heart sinking. 2,000 ships, she whispered. They're really going to do it. Hyun Park stood beside her, his face grim but not surprised. We knew they would escalate. We prepared for this. Did we? Jiwan asked. We barely survived 200 ships. How do we fight 2,000? We don't fight them head-on. We fight smart. We fight dirty. We use every advantage we have. Hyun pulled up a star chart. The council thinks this is a simple military operation. They're going to assemble their fleet at designated staging points, then travel together to Earth. That gives us time. Time for what? Time to hurt them everywhere else. Hyun's plan was already in motion. For weeks, what the council thought were fleeing human colony ships had actually been positioning for guerrilla operations. Small human vessels were scattered across 100 star systems, hiding in asteroid fields and nebulae, waiting for orders. The orders came now. Commander Taejin Sung received his encrypted message while hiding in the rings of a gas giant in Vrellan space. His ship, the Shadow Knife, was one of 50 stealth vessels designed specifically for this kind of operation. Small, fast, invisible to most sensors, and armed with weapons designed to cause maximum disruption. Target confirmed, his navigator said. Vrellan Supply Depot. 3 freighters docked, minimal defense. Move in, Taejin ordered. Quick strike. In and out in 5 minutes. The Shadow Knife dropped out of stealth right next to the supply depot. Before the defenders could react, Taejin's crew launched magnetic mines that attached to the freighters' hulls. The mines didn't explode. They released Dr. Minho Choi's latest creation, a biological agent, carefully designed to target only Vrellan biology. It would spread through their ships, making the crews sick. Not killing them, that would be too obvious, but making them weak and confused, making them unable to fight. The Shadow Knife disappeared back into stealth and was gone before the Vrellan ships even sounded the alarm. Across the galaxy, similar attacks happened simultaneously. 50 human ships striking at logistics, infrastructure, command centers. They didn't try to destroy everything. They tried to create chaos and fear. On the Karveth homeworld, Agent Bora Kwan worked from inside the planetary network. She'd been inserted months ago, posing as a traitor, and had slowly built access to critical systems. Now she activated her virus. Across the planet, traffic control systems failed. Banking networks showed random numbers. Communication satellites began broadcasting strange signals. Nothing fatal. Nothing that would hurt civilians, but everything that would create confusion and tie up resources. Bora smiled as she watched the chaos unfold. Then she uploaded her final package, a data dump of everything she'd stolen from Council networks. Fleet movements, strategic plans, communication protocols, and most importantly, the dirty secrets. The files spread across the galactic internet before anyone could stop them. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds suddenly learned the truth about their galactic council. The truth that 3 other species had been destroyed in the past when they refused to comply with council demands. The truth that the council was dominated by a few aggressive species who used it to legitimize their exploitation of weaker members. The truth that many member species were essentially tributaries, forced to pay resources and accept terms or face isolation. The truth that the council wasn't maintaining peace. It was maintaining an empire. Tessa Rin read the files with growing horror. She'd suspected some of this, but seeing the proof was overwhelming. She immediately contacted Jiwan through a secure channel. They met in secret on a neutral space station, both taking enormous risks. Tessa's light pulsed with agitation as she spoke. "Your intelligence agent, Bora, she found everything. The Tolan species, the Vex, the Harmonian, all destroyed by council decree. Their crime was refusing to surrender their resources." "Just like us," Jiwan said quietly. "Just like you," Tessa agreed. "The council has become corrupt. The Vrellan and Karveth use it as a weapon to expand their power. Many of us smaller species have no real voice. We vote how we're told or face consequences." "Why are you telling me this?" Jiwan asked. "Why risk helping us?" Tessa's light flared bright. "Because you're fighting back. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone is standing up to them. If you win, if you survive, maybe things can change." "We can't win alone," Jiwan admitted. "Not against 2,000 ships." "You won't be alone." Tessa transmitted a data file. "These are the coordinates of council species who secretly oppose the current regime. The Luminar will provide you with medical technology and shield enhancements. The Tauren will share intelligence. 6 others have agreed to quietly sabotage the extermination fleet from within." Jiwan felt hope for the first time in weeks. "Why would they risk so much?" "Because you've shown them that resistance is possible, that the council isn't invincible. You fought with courage and determination and yes, savagery, but you fought for something pure, for your home and your people. That's inspiring to those of us who have forgotten what that means." Back on Earth, Dr. Minho Choi worked frantically in his lab. The biological weapons had worked well, but he needed something stronger. Something that would even the odds against 2,000 ships. He thought about ethics, about the line between defense and atrocity. Then he thought about Earth's children, about the flowers that grew outside his lab, about music and art and all the things that would be destroyed if they failed. He made his choice. The quantum virus he designed wasn't biological. It targeted artificial intelligence, the ship mind systems that controlled most council vessels. It would spread through quantum-entangled communications, jumping from ship to ship faster than any firewall could stop it. It wouldn't destroy the AI. It would confuse them, make them unreliable, make them see enemies where there were allies. It was cruel in its own way, but it might save Earth. As the Council's extermination fleet began assembling, humanity prepared its desperate defense. They had guerrilla forces scattered across the galaxy. They had secret allies willing to help. They had weapons that broke every rule of civilized warfare. They had 30 days before the fleet arrived. Yun stood with Admiral Yunahan in Earth's Orbital Defense Command. Through the windows, they could see the construction crews working around the clock, building mines and weapons platforms, creating every defensive measure they could imagine. "Will it be enough?" Yun asked. Yuna looked at him with tired eyes. "No, but we'll make them pay for every inch of space. We'll make them regret ever threatening us. And maybe, just maybe, we'll survive long enough to see tomorrow." The countdown to Armageddon had begun. The Council's extermination fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 2,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. From Mars to Neptune, every human sensor station detected them simultaneously. Admiral Yunahan stood in Earth's orbital command center, watching the display. 2,000 ships versus 200 human vessels. 10-to-1 odds. Every military simulation predicted total defeat within 6 hours. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her communications officer said. Yuna looked at the faces around her, young officers who should have been living peaceful lives, veterans who had hoped never to fight again, scientists and engineers who had become weapons designers, all of them ready to die for Earth. "Open a channel to all vessels," she ordered. Her voice would reach every human ship, every fighter pilot, every crew member. "This is Admiral Han. The enemy comes with overwhelming force. They expect us to surrender or die quickly. They still don't understand what we are." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We are humans. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We split the atom. We reached for the stars. And now when they tell us to kneel, we show them what humans really are. We are survivors. We are fighters. We are Earth." Across 200 ships, crews cheered. In fighter cockpits, pilots armed their weapons. In torpedo bays, crews loaded payloads that broke every law of civilized warfare. The Council fleet began its approach, confident and slow. They had time. They had power. They had every advantage. Fleet Marshal Grevone commanded from his flagship, a vessel so large it had its own gravity. He watched the human ships move to intercept and clicked his mandibles in amusement. "They're actually going to fight," he said to his officers. "Even now, facing certain death, they fight. Admirable in its own primitive way." "Orders, Marshal?" his tactical officer asked. "Standard engagement. Concentrate fire, eliminate them systematically. Show them the futility of resistance." The first salvos lit up space. Massive energy beams from 2,000 ships, enough firepower to crack a planet. The human fleet scattered, diving and weaving through the incoming fire. Some ships exploded immediately. Others took glancing hits that damaged but didn't destroy them. Then the humans began their counterattack. What happened next would be studied by military academies for generations. Analyzed and debated, both praised and condemned. The humans didn't fight like any civilized species. They fought like cornered animals, using every dirty trick they'd ever invented. Captain Salmon Lee commanded a squadron of 50 ships in the vanguard. Her orders were simple: cause maximum chaos. "Release Package Alpha," she ordered. From her ships poured thousands of objects. The Council fleet sensors identified them as missiles and began shooting them down. But they weren't missiles. They were rocks, simple asteroids accelerated to near light speed using Earth's newly developed mass drivers. They couldn't maneuver, but at that speed they didn't need to. The first rock struck a Council cruiser's shield. The shield held for a microsecond, then failed catastrophically. The rock continued through the ship, through 3 ships behind it, creating a line of destruction through the Council formation. Dozens more rocks followed. The Council fleet broke formation, trying to avoid the relativistic projectiles, and in doing so, created gaps in their defensive coverage. Lieutenant Daeho Song, promoted to commander after his previous heroics, led a wing of fighters through those gaps. His squadron wasn't trying to dogfight or engage in traditional combat. They were delivery vehicles. "Deploy von Neumann swarms," he ordered. Millions of tiny self-replicating machines spread from his fighters. Each one was programmed with a simple directive: find enemy ships, attach, replicate, and destroy. They would build copies of themselves from the target's own hull material, spreading like a plague across the Council fleet. The Council ships began taking damage from something they couldn't see, couldn't target, couldn't fight. Panic spread through their communications networks. That's when Dr. Minho Choi activated his quantum virus. The virus spread through the Council fleet's quantum communication channels in seconds, infecting the ship-mind AI systems that controlled most vessels. The AI didn't die or shut down. Instead, they began to malfunction, seeing threats that weren't there, misidentifying friend and enemy. Council ships began firing on each other. Grevone watched his carefully organized fleet descend into chaos. Ships collided as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fired at random targets. Communications became garbled and unreliable. "What's happening?" he roared. "Report!" "Sir, our AI systems are compromised. Ships are showing false sensor readings. We're receiving conflicting orders from vessels claiming to be you. Override everything, switch to manual control." But manual control was too slow. The Council had relied on AI for so long that many species had forgotten how to fight without it. Human ships, controlled by living pilots making instant decisions, exploited every moment of confusion. Soman watched the carnage unfold and felt sick. This was war without honor, without rules, without mercy. But it was keeping Earth alive. All ships press the attack. Target the flagship. Her squadron dove toward Grevon's massive vessel. They took heavy casualties, losing ship after ship to point defense systems and escort vessels. But they kept coming. Solman armed her final weapon, something Dr. Minho had called Hell's Gift. A fusion bomb wrapped in a magnetic containment field that would, for a brief moment, create temperatures matching the core of a star. "This is Captain Lee," she broadcast to her crew. "It's been an honor serving with you." Her crew understood what she meant. There was no escape plan, no rescue mission. This was a one-way trip. "The honor was ours, Captain," her tactical officer replied quietly. Solman accelerated her ship toward the flagship, focusing all her remaining shield power forward. The ship shook as weapons fire impacted it. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches vented atmosphere, but the Indomitable kept flying. She punched through the flagship's outer shields, flying into the gap created by a dying escort vessel. Her ship was coming apart, but she was close enough now. "For Earth," she whispered, and activated the weapon. The explosion was visible from Earth itself, a new star burning briefly in the night sky. When the light faded, the flagship was gone. Fleet Marshal Grevon was gone, and Captain Solman Lee was gone. But her sacrifice created an opening. Human forces poured through the confused Council fleet, hitting command ships, destroying communication relays, creating more chaos. Far across the galaxy, Commander Taijin Sung executed his part of the plan. His guerrilla forces had been waiting for this moment. As the Council's main fleet fought at Earth, Taijin's ships struck at their homeworlds. Not civilian targets, never civilians, but military installations, shipyards, supply depots, forcing the Council to divert resources, to recall ships from the main fleet, to defend their own homes. The Council's advantage began to crumble. Ships started breaking off from the engagement, heading back to protect their homeworlds. Others, compromised by the quantum virus, became liabilities instead of assets. On Earth, Hyun Park watched the battle from the command center. They were losing, slowly but surely. Despite everything, the Council still had superior numbers and firepower. At the current rate, Earth's defenses would fail in 3 hours. "Admiral," he said to Yunahan, "we need to use it." Yuna knew what he meant. The final weapon. The last resort. The thing that would ensure mutual destruction. Dr. Minho Choi had discovered how to turn a star into a bomb. By triggering a premature fusion cascade in the sun, they could create a supernova that would destroy everything within 20 light-years. Earth would die, but so would the Council fleet. "It was the ultimate deterrent, are you certain?" Yuna asked. Hyun looked at the casualty reports. 2 billion dead on Earth from orbital bombardments. Mars colony destroyed. The outer settlements gone. If this continued, humanity would be extinct anyway. "Prepare the device," he ordered, "and broadcast our intentions to the Council fleet." The message went out on all frequencies in all languages. "This is Earth Command. We have prepared a stellar ignition device. If you do not cease fire immediately, we will trigger our sun's collapse. Everyone dies. You have 5 minutes to respond in what remained of the Council fleet." The transmission caused panic. Some species thought it was a bluff. Others checked their sensors and realized with horror that it wasn't. The temporary commander, having taken over after Grevon's death, faced an impossible choice. Continue the attack and risk total annihilation, or retreat and admit defeat. "All ships cease fire," he finally ordered. "Fall back to minimum safe distance." The guns fell silent. In the sudden quiet, both sides assessed the damage. The Council had lost over half its fleet. Earth had lost 60% of its defenses and significant portions of its orbital infrastructure. Neither side had won. But both had survived. Yuna opened a communication channel to the Council fleet. "You came to destroy us. We showed you that we would rather die than surrender. Now you understand what humans are. We don't bluff. We don't quit. Push us to the edge and we'll drag you over with us." The Council commander's response was bitter. "You're monsters. You fight without honor, we fight to survive," Yuna replied. "You taught us we had to. Now are we going to continue killing each other?" 5 years had passed since the war ended. Earth's sky was still scarred with debris fields from the battle, but life was slowly returning to normal. In the rebuilt city of Seoul, children played in parks where orbital bombardments had once created craters. On Mars, colonists worked to resurrect their settlements. Humanity was healing, though the scars ran deep. Jiwon Kim stood at the window of Earth's embassy on the new Galactic Assembly Station, watching ships come and go. The station looked similar to the old Council headquarters, but everything else had changed. The Galactic Council as it had existed was gone, replaced by something new. Something more democratic, something humanity had helped create. Ambassador Kim, a soft voice said behind her. Tessa Rin's luminous form glowed gently in the dim office. "The assembly is ready for your address." Jiwon nodded, smoothing her formal dress. She still couldn't believe she was about to speak before representatives of 43 species. The council had splintered after the war, with many species breaking away to form new alliances. Earth had somehow ended up at the center of it all. The assembly chamber was different from the old council. Seats were arranged in a circle instead of tiers, symbolizing equality. No species sat above another. Every voice carried equal weight, at least in theory. Jiwon walked to the center platform. 43 pairs of eyes, stalks, sensors, and other organs focused on her. Some looked at her with respect, others with fear, a few with lingering hatred. "Members of the Galactic Assembly," she began, her voice steady. "5 years ago, my people faced extinction. The old council came to Earth not with friendship, but with demands. They saw us as resources to be exploited, primitives to be controlled. They gave us an ultimatum, surrender or die. The chamber was completely silent. Everyone remembered what had happened next. We chose neither option. We chose to fight. And we fought in ways that horrified you. We used weapons you had banned. We employed tactics you considered barbaric. We showed you a savagery that made you question whether we deserved to exist." Jiwon paused, letting her words sink in. "You were right to be horrified. War is horrific. Death is horrific. What we did to survive, what we were forced to become, was horrific. But we didn't choose this path. We were pushed onto it by those who saw kindness as weakness and peace as an opportunity for exploitation." She looked directly at the former council members who now sat as equals among the others. "The old council destroyed 3 species before us. The Tolan, the Vex, the Harmonian. Their crime was refusing to surrender their sovereignty. They were eliminated quietly, their existence erased from galactic records. We only discovered this truth through our intelligence operations during the war." Angry murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species hadn't known about the destroyed civilizations. Agent Bora Kwan had done her work well, but some secrets had remained buried until now. The council you trusted to maintain peace was actually maintaining an empire. A few strong species used it to legitimize their expansion and control. The rest of you either benefited from it or were too afraid to speak against it. Former council leader Thane Vares stood, his forearms trembling with anger. "This is slander." The council maintained order for 10,000 years. "Order built on oppression," Jiwon countered calmly. "Order that required the elimination of anyone who resisted. That's not peace, Thane, that's tyranny." Tessa Rin's light brightened as she stood. "Ambassador Kim speaks truth. Many of us knew the council had become corrupt, but we were powerless to change it. The humans showed us that resistance was possible. They paid a terrible price, but they showed us." "They paid a price?" A Vrellan representative clicked angrily. "They killed hundreds of thousands of our people. They unleashed weapons that violated every civilized norm." Jiwon turned to face the Vrellan. "And you came to steal our world. You sent fleets to enforce slavery. What did you expect us to do? Die quietly so you could take our water and minerals? Every weapon we used, every tactic we employed was in direct response to your aggression. You could have surrendered," the Vrellan insisted. "And become extinct anyway, just more slowly," Jiwon replied. "We studied the 3 species you destroyed. They surrendered. They complied with council demands. And within a generation they ceased to exist. Their resources stripped, their populations scattered and absorbed by other species. Surrender was just another form of death." The assembly erupted in debate. Some species defended the old ways. Others, especially the smaller ones who had suffered under council domination, supported Jiwon's words. The truth was messy and complicated, and no one was completely innocent. Hyun Park watched the debate from Earth's military headquarters. He was older now, gray at the temples, carrying the weight of decisions that had cost millions of lives. Admiral Yuna Han sat beside him, retired but still consulted on military matters. "Do you think they'll listen?" Hyun asked. Yuna shrugged. "Some will. Others will hate us forever for what we did. That's the cost of survival. We can't make everyone like us. We can only make sure they respect us enough not to threaten us again." On the screen, they watched Jiwon continue her address. The Galactic Assembly was formed to prevent what happened before. Equal representation, democratic decision-making, protection for smaller species. These are good principles. But principles mean nothing without enforcement. Jiwon pulled up a holographic display showing military statistics. Earth has spent the last 5 years rebuilding not just our cities but our defenses. We now have 400 warships, all equipped with technology that matches or exceeds any species in this assembly. We have weapons that frighten you, tactics that disturb you, a willingness to use both that keeps you awake at night. "Is that a threat?" someone asked. "No," Jiwon said firmly. "It's a promise. A promise that Earth will never again be vulnerable. A promise that we will defend not just ourselves but any species facing what we faced. The old Council's greatest crime wasn't threatening Earth. It was making us believe we had to become monsters to survive." She deactivated the display and looked around the chamber. "We don't want to be monsters. We don't want to fight. But we've learned that peace requires strength. That kindness without power is just an invitation for exploitation. So we remain armed, remain vigilant, remain ready, and we offer that same protection to any species who needs it." It was a bold statement, positioning Earth as a galactic protector. Some representatives looked hopeful. Others looked skeptical. The Vrellan representatives looked angry. "You speak of protection," Thane Vores said coldly, "but I see only a new tyrant rising to replace the old order. You've proven you're willing to use horrific weapons. What stops you from using them to conquer instead of defend?" Jiwon smiled sadly. "The 2 billion people we lost. The cities we had to rebuild. The children who grew up without parents. We remember the cost of war, Thane. We remember it every day. That's what stops us. We know what violence does, what it takes, what it leaves behind. We don't want to pay that price again." She paused, then added quietly, "But we will if we must." The vote came the next day. Earth's proposal for mutual defense treaties with willing species passed by a wide margin. 32 species signed immediately, forming what would become known as the Free Stars Alliance. The old council members refused, but their influence was broken. Captain Daeho Song, now commanding a joint exploration fleet with Luminar partners, celebrated the news from deep space. His ship was exploring systems beyond the old council's territory, searching for new worlds and new species. Maybe ones they could contact peacefully this time. Dr. Minho Choi watched the vote from his laboratory on Earth. He'd spent 5 years trying to undo some of the weapons he'd created, trying to find ways to neutralize the nanomachines and viruses that still occasionally surfaced in old battle zones. He would carry the guilt of his creations forever, but he'd chosen to live with it rather than hide from it. Agent Bora Kwan had retired from intelligence work and opened a small restaurant in Singapore. She'd seen enough secrets, told enough lies, done enough things she could never speak about. Now she made soup for travelers and tried to find peace in simple things. Hyun Park visited a memorial wall outside military headquarters, looking at the names of the fallen. 2 million names carved in stone, each one representing a life lost in the war. He came here every year on the war's anniversary, remembering the faces, the voices, the people who had trusted him to make the right decisions. "Do you think it was worth it?" Admiral Yunahan asked, standing beside him. "I don't know," Hyun admitted. "We survived. We won, if you can call it winning. But the cost was the only price that would save us," Yuna finished. "We can't change what we did. We can only try to make sure it meant something." A young officer approached them, saluting smartly. "Sir, ma'am. Recruit orientation is starting. You're scheduled to speak." They walked to the training grounds where new recruits stood in formation, young people who had been children during the war, now choosing to serve. Hyun looked at their faces and saw hope mixed with determination. "I'm Commander Hyun Park," he told them. 5 years ago, I helped plan the defense of Earth. I made decisions that cost millions of lives. I unleashed weapons that horrified the galaxy. I would give anything to change that, to find another way.